What happens when a lone baboon takes on the impossible task of raising 3 abandoned lion cubs? You won't believe how this unlikely family turns the tables on a ruthless world that wanted them dead. If you think you've seen it all in the wild, think again. Here I am, a baboon named Kaylee, living my usual chaotic life in the African savannah, dodging lions, stealing food, and trying to stay one step ahead of danger. Life's tough, but you get used to it. Then one day, out of nowhere, fate decides to throw me a curveball that would test every ounce of guts I had. It started like any other blistering hot morning. The sun was already pounding down, turning the dust into a choking haze. I was just minding my own business, foraging near the acacia trees, when a strange sound caught my attention, whimpering. Not the usual baboon chatter or the distant roar of a lion, but something desperate and raw. I followed the noise, cautious but curious. Never a good mix in my line of work. What I found made my heart do a double take. 3 lion cubs, tiny and trembling, trapped in a thorny bush. Their fur was matted with dirt and dried blood, eyes wide with fear. They were utterly alone. The thought that their mother might be gone gnawed at me like a relentless itch. And here I was, a baboon, nature's class clown, faced with a choice. Run and pretend I didn't see it, or step up and do the unthinkable. I wasn't exactly expecting a round of applause for what came next. The first thing I did was tear at those nasty barbed branches with my teeth and claws until those cubs were free. You should have seen the grimace on my face. Those thorns didn't come cheap. But hey, hero work is never glamorous. As I helped the smallest cub limp out, a faint rustle from the bushes made my hackles rise. I wasn't the only one watching. Out from the shadows staggered a lioness, battered and weak. Her eyes, tired but fierce, locked onto me. You'd think we'd be enemies by default, but there was something almost human about that moment. An unspoken truce born out of sheer survival. I could feel her pain, the weight of loss she carried. It hit me harder than any hunter's bullet ever could. Just as I was about to catch my breath, the ominous barking of dogs tore through the air. Hunters. I knew those bastards were back, hell-bent on turning this place into a graveyard for anything wild and free. No matter how brave you are, nothing prepares you for the cold greed behind those gun barrels. So I did what any self-respecting baboon with a conscience would do. I became a distraction. Rock by rock, I pelted the hunters, cursing every step they took closer to my makeshift family. I felt the sting of every near miss, but I refused to back down. The cubs limped behind me, trusting an unlikely protector with more fur than sense. The world around us didn't give a damn. While I risked my skin, whispers started to spread through the savannah, rumors that I was cursed for mixing with lions, that nature's order was being defied. I caught more than a few sideways glances from my own troop, some with fear, others with suspicion. It was clear. Helping those cubs was a gamble, and the deck was stacked against me. Yet even in the face of whispered curses and bloodthirsty hunters, something inside me grew stronger. I was no longer just Kaylee the baboon. I was Kaylee, the unlikely guardian. And if that made me an outcast, so be it. Because those cubs needed someone to believe in them, and I wasn't about to let the savannah's cruel rules tear us apart. The sun was setting now, painting the sky with fiery reds and oranges as we settled into a hidden spot. The cubs nestled close, and I felt something rare, hope. Against all odds, maybe this ragtag family could survive. What happened next changed everything. You will not want to miss how this wild bond gets tested like never before. Stay tuned. If you thought the savannah was just a backdrop for sunsets and majestic wildlife, think again. It's a battlefield, and I, Kaylee, your favorite baboon turned lion cub bodyguard, was right in the middle of it. What started as a strange act of kindness quickly spiraled into a nightmare that no amount of monkey business could fix. Weeks passed, and those cubs, call them Leo, Nala, and little Simba, were no longer helpless balls of fur. They grew stronger under my watchful eye, learning how to stalk shadows and listen to the whispers of the grass. I swear teaching lions to live by baboon rules wasn't in the manual, but we made it work. There was this odd family vibe, you know? A baboon, 3 lion cubs, and a battered lioness ghosting in the background, watching with cautious eyes. We were a mess, but a tight one. Then reality barged in like a bull at a china shop. A convoy of vehicles rolled into our territory, cameras flashing and voices barking orders. At first I thought it was the eco-warriors, the kind-hearted humans with their fancy cameras and even fancier ideas. But nope. Mixed in with those idealists were the sharks of the wilderness, poachers and opportunists. They smelled profit where we smelled survival. The poachers didn't care about stories of survival or unlikely friendships. To them, those cubs were just future trophies, dollar signs wrapped in fur. Their eyes were cold, calculating, the kind that make your skin crawl even before the gunshots start. I won't lie, the first clash was brutal. I threw myself between those greedy men and the cubs, using every trick a baboon could muster. Rock throws, loud calls, even a well-timed dive into a pile of thorns to slow one down, all while keeping the cubs safe and out of sight. My heart hammered so loud I was sure the whole savannah could hear it. "Get that damn baboon!" one of the poachers snarled, but I had no plans of being anyone's easy target. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here I was, a baboon, being chased by men who thought they were kings of this land. Enter Emma. She was the human with the cameras, the voice that cut through the chaos. Sharp-eyed, quick-witted, and with just the right amount of grit to back up her heart. She saw what I was doing, not just the battle, but the bond. She understood the bigger picture. This wasn't just about lions or baboons, it was about respect, survival, and justice. Emma started broadcasting our fight, and suddenly the world couldn't look away. Social media lit up with stories and photos, the little family in the savannah capturing hearts around the globe. That put a target on our backs bigger than any lion's roar. Threats came pouring in, some veiled, some not so much. The poachers weren't pleased with their newfound fame, and Emma's safety was on the line. She confided in me one night, voice low. "Kaylee, this isn't just about you and the cubs anymore. It's a war." I felt it too, the weight of every threat, every suspicious shadow. Meanwhile, the cubs started showing signs of their true nature. Leo's roar cracked through the air, fierce and raw. Nala's eyes gleamed with an untamable fire, and Simba, well, he was still the smallest but had the heart of a lion twice his size. They were growing up, and with that came restless urges, conflicts, and the pull of the wild that no baboon could tame forever. One evening, as I watched them spar under the setting sun, I caught myself wondering, was I really their guardian, or just a fool playing a role the savannah never intended? This is the turning point. What's coming will flip everything you thought you knew. Don't miss the showdown that's about to shake this wild family to its core. By now, if you think life in the savannah is a simple game of hunter and hunted, you're about as wrong as a zebra trying to blend in at a giraffe's cocktail party. Things got ugly fast, and trust me, nobody was ready for what came next. The poachers, feeling the heat from Emma's online storm and the world's growing outrage, weren't about to back down. They came back in full force, guns gleaming, traps set, and nerves stretched thinner than the last leaf on an acacia tree in the dry season. I was ready to fight tooth and claw, but this was more than a fight. It was a full-on war. I rallied my troop and some unexpected allies, the elephants who usually kept their distance, a band of hyenas that owed me a favor, and even that battered lioness who had been watching from the shadows. You could call it a strange coalition, but in the wild, survival doesn't come with neat little boxes. The night before the showdown, the air was thick with tension. My heart was pounding in my chest like a drumbeat of impending doom. But there was something else, an odd sense of clarity. I had to protect those cubs, not just for them, but for everything they represented: hope, defiance, a middle finger to a system that wanted to tear us apart. When dawn broke, it wasn't just light that shattered the darkness. It was a battle cry that echoed across the plains. The poachers were met with an unrelenting force, animals united by a cause bigger than themselves. Rocks flew, trunks swung, and teeth flashed as we drove the invaders back step by step. In the chaos, Emma's voice rang out, rallying support from a distance, her camera capturing every moment. She had become more than a witness. She was a warrior in her own right, fighting for the family we'd all built. The poachers, overwhelmed and outmatched, finally fled into the dust from which they came. But the real victory wasn't just driving off the bad guys, it was what happened afterward. The lion cubs, now standing tall and fierce, no longer just victims or curiosities, but symbols of resilience. Leo's roar carried the promise of a new era, Nala's gaze held a fiery determination, and little Simba, well, he was a fighter through and through. As for me, I found a strange peace in the madness. I wasn't just a baboon anymore. I was part of something greater, a family forged in fire and survival. And even the lioness, once a ghost of grief, seemed to find strength in our unity. Emma's story spread like wildfire, changing hearts and minds beyond the savannah. The local communities, once indifferent or hostile, began to see us through new eyes, recognizing that the fight for these cubs was a fight for the wild itself. Sometimes the world throws you a role you never auditioned for. You just have to grab it by the mane and run with it. That's what we did, and that's what will live on long after the dust settles. This is the moment you've been waiting for. Watch how a baboon and 3 lion cubs turned the tables on a system built to destroy them.